just good at caring too much. I'm just good at caring too much. Is it too much to ask that you be all mine?
Hey guys, it's Melissa and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Melissa Ellen and I do these true crime stories. So the last couple weeks things have just been a little difficult for me in regards to recording. There's been just a couple of cases that have kind of changed how I wanted to work on them and just moved some things along. So what I'm going to do today is I have an update on two cases I think most of you are following. One is a case that we've already done. And then we're going to talk about two other cases that I've been researching, and I've decided not to do regular videos on them. I actually want to try to do a series on them for a couple different reasons, and I'm going to explain that to you and when we got to those cases. So I do have everything timestamped for you down below. The first two things we're going to do is I'm going to give you an update on Tristyn Bailey. We did a video talking about what happened to her recently, and there have been some updates, and I made a decision on what I want to do in regards to moving forward and covering the case in regards to the trial. So we're going to talk about Tristyn first. Then I want to talk about CashGernon, and this was a case that I decided not to cover. And the biggest problem for me is that just like in the Tristyn case, there was so much, and there is still so much bad public information that could almost interfere with the case. It's uncomfortable. I don't know where it's going for, like why people are saying the things they're saying, how they think they're helping anyone in any way, shape, or form, and it's just awkward. However, there are a lot of reasons that I do want to talk about the CashGernon case and talking about what happens when people are trolling and when they're causing all this public outcry, and then talking about the system. I mean, at the end of the day, Cash was absolutely failed. Did that lead to his death? Probably not. Probably so. It's all kind of tied together. And then also on top of that, we are talking about someone who is responsible, who appears to be clearly mentally ill. However, the system failed as well there with not taking care of that. So I actually want to talk a little bit about the CashGernon case, and then I would like to come back to that case as well when it does get closer to trial, when there's not any interference I'd be running in any way, and I could actually explain what happens in the trial, what he actually gets charged with, why, and how they're going to move forward with those charges, okay? So I will be doing that second, and then at the end, I'm going to talk to you guys about two cases that I had been working on that I want to do a series on. One is going to be on BettyBroderick. She was responsible for the murder of her ex-husband and his new wife, and it's not really about BettyBroderick, and unfortunately it's not really about her victims, but this case is a case that is used often to highlight a lot of different elements of domestic violence that people don't really think about normally. When you hear domestic violence, you think about violence, like being hit and hurt and called names. But there is just such a bigger part of domestic violence that includes gaslighting, financial abuse. And so this story brings that topic up. Do I think it's the best story to talk about for this topic? Probably not. However, it is going to probably start a series for me on something that I've always been interested in covering. So this is something, those that have followed me know that I was in a very bad relationship prior. I went through a lot of, all avenues of a violent relationship. So I do want to do something on that, and I would like to talk about the things that people don't normally talk about, and that would be the financial abuse, the legal abuse that people go through from their partner. So that is something I want to do, and I want to turn that into kind of a series. So I'm going to talk to you guys about that case really quick, but that's why I'm going to be moving forward. And then also we had the case of Broderick Benoit, which was a wrestling superstar here in America, well, I guess worldwide, and he had actually murdered his wife and son and then killed himself. And the reason I wanted to talk about this case is that it's salacious, it's interesting, and I heard that there was these conspiracy theories that people put out involving somebody else responsible and the WWE, which is like the worldwide wrestling entertainment. And so there was just a lot, and I was going to cover that. However, I did not take into account the fact that I was already looking at the BettyBroderick case, which involved domestic violence, and that does always bring some things up for me. But then we were also now talking about steroid use, which was a big part of something I caused we're just not gonna put too much of my business out there, but obviously this one was a very high trigger for me. However, so I decided I'm not touching that because my head can't take that. That's a little too much for me to think about right now. However, once doing research on the Broderick Benoit case, it turns out that a lot of this has to do with head injuries and the allowance of excessive overuse of steroids. And I'm just kind of curious, and I'm so freaking curious why people still say Chris Benoit wasn't on steroids and steroid rage doesn't exist. Like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Like, it exists. Yeah, no, I promise you it does. So those are what we're going to cover today. Sorry for the long intro. I just wanted to kind of get you guys where we're going. I have missed you guys like crazy. Those that have been with me, yeah, I miss you guys. I just sometimes just me. And I just can't get what I want to say onto video. So it takes me a minute. So let's jump into the video. Okay, number one. Let's talk about Tristyn Bailey. Tristyn was a 13-year-old little girl who was murdered on May 9th, Mother's Day of 2021. I did a video talking about her case on May 21st. Now, when I did that video, I made it very clear that my intention was to just try to be a little bit of hope and light. I believe that that works sometimes if you try to put that into the world. Not to get all crazy on you guys, but there were so many bad negative things being posted about Tristyn. There were so many fake accounts being made, Instagram, Twitter, out of control, just trying to put the victim in a really negative light, there are even people that are still trying to pretend that they are pro for the killer, like they love him, that they're fans of his. It's disgusting. I don't understand why people do it, but they do. And it's a common thing that's been happening in the true crime world where people will use a case and beyond going like, I get accused of clout chasing for, using my face and putting myself in video trying to make money by using victims. But like, that's not happening, first of all. And second of all, a lot of what we do is trying to actually bring awareness. There are accounts that like, they want that troll status. Like they want to be like the worst account who says the worst thing so they can get the most followers, even though they're absolutely disgusting and hated for what they're doing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of young kids, like my son, he's 11. He's the one who came to me and was like, Mom, didn't you say you talked about that girl? And he's like, I saw this on TikTok. And I'm like, how is that even on your TikTok? We take TikTok away because I'm like, I don't want you seeing that kind of stuff. These people are just trolling and saying horrible things. And I just think it's very unfortunate. The family lost a child, a beautiful little girl who had so much to offer the world and so much to offer to her family, and she's just gone viciously. I know everyone knows every detail of what happened. So I originally didn't feel that there was any reason that I would come back to this case. I mean, unfortunately, it's disgusting. It's horrible what Aiden Fucci did to Tristyn, but he murdered her. It did come out since my video. I don't remember if this was in the video yet, but he stabbed her 114 times. It appears that she might have been out that evening, either snuck out or her parents weren't careful about her curfew time to be in. But she was out and she was at a friend's house and she was walking back, and it appears that she was walking with Aiden. She knew him, but they weren't like the best of friends or hanging out together. And he attacked her. They got into some sort of argument and he attacked her and he stabbed her and he killed her. Now, since there are reports that Aiden had already been telling friends prior that he had wanted to kill someone, that he wanted to take someone and harm them. So I've decided that I would like to cover this case when we get closer to trial because I want to know, were there other people that knew about this, and who were these other people, and how soon was this? Was this like a younger friend that just heard it the day before and he just is a kid and didn't know what to say, didn't take it serious? Were these older kids? Were these multiple kids? Did teachers hear these rumors? Did his parents know this? I want to know if other people knew that Aiden Fucci was telling people that he wanted to kill someone, and then he was let out in the evening with a young girl where he did kill her. I want to know what his mother was thinking. Aiden Fucci's mother has been arrested. She didn't just make a quick rash decision and try to wash some blood specks off of her son's pants. According to the report, I believe this is in the arrest affidavit, she actually went into his room, got the pants out of his hamper after he was already with the police, and was looking at them, inspecting them, cleaning them over and over, taking them into her room to look further. So this wasn't a rash decision. His mother tried to make sure that the pants he was wearing when he was with Tristyn were cleaned. So she was arrested and she has been released on bail, and we will find out further on what that is going to mean for her and for Aiden's case. But I just have a lot of questions. So the first one was, will he be tried as an adult? And that decision was already made, and he will be tried as an adult at the age of 14. I don't know, guys, okay? I have no problems with them trying him as an adult. What he did was vicious, vile, and out of control, and this doesn't need to be someone that has a chance to be released anytime soon. They definitely need eyes on this person. I had a lot of comments in the last saying that in the state of Florida, they do not do parole. I still didn't take a moment to look up exactly like what the actual term is going to be for a minor, but they do have a form of parole, and that is a review. And when you're a minor, and I believe this is federally now, all minor cases are looked at after a certain period. I believe it's across 25 years everywhere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're never going to send a minor to prison and not look at the minor again to see, and I'm not just talking about Aiden, I'm talking about any minor, okay? They're not going to just sentence them and then not look at their case again. It's just not how it works because of the fact that their brains aren't developed and all these things that I know none of us want to give him, like think about for him. I'm talking about for other kids and for him 20 something years from now. Like they do need to come back and look at it. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen in trial. Like, really, what are the options for him at this point? Like, you're getting life in prison and you'll be looked at in so many years. Like, that's what I thought is just very clear. But a lot's going to come out in this trial. There are still a lot of rumors saying that she was actually assaulted sexually, and it does not appear so. So if that does happen, that would come out in trial, and that would be something that we would talk about then. So I will be back later on this case to talk about the dynamics of the trial, the defense that's going to be introduced, his mother's involvement, the other people that knew, and just kind of a whole around, like how in the hell did nobody know that this boy was running around with the intention to kill somebody and then just did it? So that, yeah, we got to talk about that for sure. Until then, I will link everything down below for you in regards to Tristyn Bailey and anything that her family is asking to do in order to preserve her memory. Try to remember that this is a little girl who was lost, and she's not everything that happened to her, that she's a little girl whose family desperately misses her. All right, so moving forward, I have a case that I'm going to do the case for you guys in the future when we get a little bit closer to trial and some things are clarified so that I can do one full video. And this is regarding I hate this one. The murder of the twin CashGernon. Him and his 4-year-old twin were asleep in their crib when he was removed from his crib by an 18-year-old man by the name of Darren Brown, who took him, stabbed him, and left him in the street. It is horrible. This was all caught on surveillance camera, and Darren then returned to the home a couple hours later and looked at the other twin, Carter, but did not take him. This case has gone crazy, and I just don't want to be in the mix of it yet because I don't feel that I can help with anything yet. I don't feel I have anything to offer, and there's so much troll mentality and clout chasing and weirdness. It makes me just uncomfortable. I don't want to ever risk impeding an investigation. So since this case is solved, okay, the only thing we could possibly be doing would be helping with the memory of the child, and that has already been done. There was a GoFundMe, there's memorials, those things are there, and if I can find anything that isn't full of a lot of trouble, I will link it down below. If you guys have a reputable source that you think that we could help Cash's family in any way, and so I'm talking about Carter, his twin brother, and he does have 2 siblings, and they are all with their maternal grandmother now. So if we want to do something for them, I'll link it down below. If you guys have something, let me know. But here's the deal. I want to come back to this case because this little boy was staying in an unfit home, and he was left there by his biological father, who was on the run from the cops from an arrest, a drug arrest, that he had his children in the car, and he didn't want to go to rehab. This child had apparently been being looked for, but mostly just by the maternal grandmother. The paternal grandmother was, it's a mess. When I talk about a failed system, because why wasn't anyone ringing a damn bell, an alarm months ago? And I'm not talking about the maternal grandmother, because she really seemed like she was trying to. She was making the calls, she was contacting CPS, she was contacting the departments that she could, and she was definitely trying, but everyone else was just failing. The father just left these children to this woman that he's just known a couple of years. I mean, he knows she has a drug problem in the past, but like, hey, she's a good mom. You mean with the children she didn't have for a long time that she just got back? It's a whole mess, and it is absolutely a failure. But the thing is that we can't undo a failure. all we can do is use this failure as an example to advocate to change for the future. And this is not how children should be living. It's just weird to me. There's these two twins in this world that are just living in someone's house for months without anybody biologically related to them, and nobody's talking about it. And how do you support them? But then like you're getting money from someone else. It's a whole mess. And I want to come back to talk about it. On top of the fact that where he was living was a complete failed mess, the suspect was already known for doing what he was doing. He was already trying to commit this kind of crime. He was already all over that neighborhood. The police had been called, the police had been notified, and I understand that the MET team, I'm not sure what we call it. So like the mental health team that would be in each police department, I believe they all have one. They're supposed to have one. The mental health team is supposed to be the crisis management. They're supposed to be out there and say, okay, so hey neighbor, you're calling in because this guy broke your camera. And then the neighbor would have been like, yeah, but he broke into so-and-so's house, and he broke into so-and-so's house, and he broke into so-and-so's house. He broke into this guy's house and tried to kidnap his granddaughter. He's out of control. He's bad. But the neighbors were like, they didn't quite want him arrested at first. They wanted something done. They wanted him to go get help. They knew something was wrong with this kid. And unfortunately, this kid came back and took a boy and murdered him. And nobody quite knows why. There are so many gossip and rumors that he assaulted the boy differently. He just stabbed him, okay? It's awful. There's not always a further motive. Sometimes people are just too far struggled in their head. I just want to be careful with terminology because I'm not trying to insult anyone who has a high medical diagnosis that they struggle with and they take their medication and take care of themselves. But some of these diagnoses are big and it takes a lot of responsibility and they weren't being taken care of. So I don't know what the issue was fully at this time in regards to Darren Brown. He has been charged with capital murder. He is in jail. They are working through his evaluation to find out whether or not he is competent to stand trial. Yeah, so I'm going to come back to this one because we're talking mental health and then we're talking about a child and then the system with like keeping track of our children in this world. Like all of this is all coming together. So once it gets a little less murky and we get a little closer to trial, I would like to come back and try to do a full video for you guys presenting everything that is actually factual from the affidavits and the court records so that I can present what is being presented in court so that when we do have verdicts in these cases that we understand whether or not we agree with them when we get them, but we'll understand how they got to those decisions. And I think it would be best if we just go and cover it then. Until then, again, I will link anything I have down below for you in regards, or if you guys have something in regards to how we can help CashGernon's family, feel free to drop it down below. I know there's a lot of drama, but I trust in my viewers to let me know if there is something that is reputable out there that we can actually help with his future. It's going to be very hard for Carter to grow up without his brother, and anything we can do to make that easier would be great. Also, the woman who found the body of Cash in the road was incredibly traumatized. It traumatized her. It was a bad experience. She was out jogging, and the way she came upon him, her confusion with what was going on with him and the state of his body and being a child was very traumatizing to her. And I know a lot of people have gotten together to kind of be a support system for her. And that is the good side of the true crime world that I really appreciate. So we will link that for you down below. Now, the two cases that I'm going to introduce to be part of a series, let me just tell you guys really quick. So BettyBroderick was married to her husband for 16 years, I think, by the time the marriage was ended. And they had 2 children. She was mostly a stay-at-home mom, but she was also a working stay-at-home mom doing a lot of like Tupperware sales, Avon sales, working out the church nursery, anything she could to do to try to help make ends meet. Her husband was in school. At first, he was going to medical school, then he went through his medical residency, and then he went to law school. So his law school and all of that was paid by loans and stuff that they had taken out because he knew that by the time he became a medical doctor, so a malpractice lawsuits doctor, a malpractice lawyer, then he would be making a gargantuan amount of money. Like they became rich, while But prior to that, during the time that he was really going through all of the school, they lived, on small means. They tried to get by. They did what they could and just everything they could for the kids to get by and live a good life. But then he made it. And this is when the children get closer into a little bit older and they make it and they're making all kinds of money. And her husband basically drops her for the younger assistant at the office. We've all heard this story. This is a very common one that gets brought up in the case of Broderick. And then from there starts this just insane trial of the divorce that they try to drag each other through. And it gets to the point where he's offered her $16,000 a month. And she's like, no, that's not enough. There's a lot to consider because we are talking like if your husband is making $150,000 a month and you helped him build his business for 15 years and then he divorces you, is $16,000 a month enough when you can't go get a job, you can't find work, you don't know anything, you've never worked, like you don't have the ability to ever live that life you were living, and you also worked for that life because she gave up anything else so that he could do it. So it kind of brings that conversation up, but then you have this whole idea that they were harassing her, she was harassing them. Okay, I'm gonna get way too into it, there's so much. But it brings up some really deep conversations that I would like to do a series on. And that is, and I don't know how I want to put it together, and I would love your guys' input, but I know that I want to talk on the fact of financial abuse and gaslighting and legal abuse. These three things, when you put them together, can have more control over a woman or a man than anyone else, okay? That's how you control a person, is by controlling those things. Especially when it's somebody who is technically a smart person who has a way to fight and they have that in them. They're smart. They're going to try and figure it out because they're going to try and fix that and then that's how they get under it. They're under it. They're just trying to dig out. They want to fix everything and they can't. So I do want to do a series on that, as well as the other case that I was going to talk about was going to be Tristyn Bailey. Now, Tristyn Bailey was a famed world entertainment superstar wrestler. It's fake, but it's not. I mean, it's fake wrestling, but they really do get hurt because they do very big moves. And just because they're coordinated together, somebody does have to take the brunt of the weight. So when I got into this case, I immediately started to back off. As I said at the beginning of the video, you guys, I was in a very bad relationship with domestic violence, including steroid use. And so I always wonder, like, am I allowed to say that? But yeah, like, it's my life and it's public record. So I guess we're good there. I already knew that that was going to be something that was triggering for me. And so I started to back off of it, but I couldn't stop looking into the case because then that's when they started talking about traumatic brain injuries and the amount of athletes and persons in the world that have been injured in their head and have gone on to commit crimes. And no, I'm very, very uncomfortable with ever excusing anyone's behavior, harming their family, harming themselves. Like, I just can't. But there are times that are very uncomfortable when you have somebody, when we have pure accidents. They're uncomfortable, but you got to forgive the person. You do have times where you also might have times where there's mental health issues. And then, yeah, it just gets really uncomfortable with having the conversation about always blaming someone when there are these other things that do happen that could lead. And I just kind of wanted to get an understanding for it. Is this really something that actually leads? Or is this just a, high-end defense attorneys have gotten these doctors on board to, swift this blame, but then there's these major organizations that are really behind it. So I was thinking, it got me going. And I do want to look further into this. It'll probably be something more for next year because I think I want to stick more with the BettyBroderick case and put together something on that for this year. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, guys. I just don't. I just know that my head went, I found like there's an area that I'm passionate about aside from just helping with missing kids, and that case kind of just sent me in the right direction with other cases to follow. So that is what I have for you guys. I know that was a lot, or maybe not a lot. I know you guys are used to really long videos from me. I'm good. I'm good with everything. Our research is moving along great. I just get kind of stuck when it comes to ideas of how to present something, and so sometimes I will just sit here and kind of go, I don't know what to say. It just happens. So anyways, all is well. I will be here the next one. I will let you guys know, will include an update on Haley Dunn, including the arrest of Sean Atkins and her mother. So I will be doing that update in my next video for you guys. And then I'll be covering a case that you guys recommended in the comments. So keep an eye out for that. All right, that's what I have for you guys. If you have any questions for me, drop them below in the chat. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Are you excited for a series? Does that seem like something I could pull off? I'd have to record it well in advance, but I can do it. All right. Until our next video, do me a favor, I say this at the end of every one of my videos. Hug your babies and hug your lives. Literally, life is too precious. Don't take anything for granted. Enjoy every minute of every day. I love you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.